just actually to welcome people, just before we get going, on behalf of the Cybercrime Forensic Specialist Group. Also, we have the Hampshire and Dorset branch are also joining us. Now, people actually, we steadily admit to you as you come through. Just actually, because we're recording this, what we actually were doing is ask people to mute themselves and cut their camera so we get a version for the recording. But also to put any questions or comments in the chat as we go through, so that Andy will actually have a sort of cleaner presentation, and then he'll actually go and answer your questions at the end. Now, there is, I'm actually just putting something in the chat, just get this ready to go. Now, what we've actually doing, if you could all help us, it would be much appreciated. We've extended the date for the Cybercrime Forensics competition. Details of that are in the chat. So you've got two options. One option is to go for the straightforward poster on the theme that you've got there. The alternative is to actually contact Grenham, and he'll actually send you the details of a case study. And again, you come up with a sort of poster solution to that case study situation. So you've got all the details there and the link across to get more details. So again, it was extended from originally the 1st of May to the 28th of this month. So do encourage either BCS members in the open class, and in the open class, you can actually have, as long as one is a BCS member, if you're working as a small team, then the others don't necessarily have to be BCS. Now, you've also got the students class for higher education, and now these could be undergraduate or postgraduate. Again, they could be in individuals or teams up to 6, but for the student class, enter by a member of the staff. They don't have to be a BCS member. So this actually is, again, just do have a look at this, and please promote these. We're much appreciated, particularly for students. So at that stage, I'd like to actually introduce you to Andy Moore, our speaker tonight, and also Vice Chair of the Cybercrime Forensics Specialist Group. Andy, over to you.
Hi all, nice to meet you. Give me 1 second. I'm just sorting out the side little demo bits. Hopefully I can remember my passwords. Hey, look at that. Okay, awesome. So I guess we can get started. So I kind of want to go over some of the ways you can get into malware forensics. The whole point of this talk is to kind of touch on little bits here and there, show off a lot of free resources that you can get access to. The key point is to make sure that you're informed about choices that you make, and also that it isn't just about how smart you are in an area. There are other skills that you need as well. Soft skills, investigative mindset. There's some really cool books that I have read over the last little while, and even my students will now have copies of them in our library. So yeah, without any further ado, let's go forward. Right, quick speed about me, 30 seconds. So I'm a digital forensics consultant. I've worked for a number of firms over the last 10 years. I'm also, I work as a senior lecturer practitioner at Anglia Ruskin University, and I'm also the course leader for our cybersecurity and digital forensics degree. I worked on a number of range of projects over the European Union, along with Cyber ASP for DCMS. I've way too many certifications, a lot of them from 7Safe, or a lot of them are PA consulting, a couple from Cisco, a couple from VMware, et cetera, et cetera. And we're back. And I've also got an MSc in cybersecurity and a BSc honors in information security and forensic computing. And I also have 2 very naughty cats that are probably sitting somewhere. You might see them and you might not. Here's open. All right. So we're going to cover. We're going to talk about malware forensics and the various roles that we can get into. We are going to link it to digital forensics and kind of move from that point. So if you have not too much of an understanding of digital forensics, I did a separate webinar on this, the BCS, about a year year and a half ago, give or take. If you look through the Cybercrime Forensics group, you can see that. I got to look about some advice with rules, some common skills I talked earlier. If we get time, we can do a little demo. Demo's lots of fun. And we'll just kind of see some malware, run some malware, then we'll see what the malware is doing. See how easy it is to build malware. It's a couple button clicks. After that, we'll like infect ourselves just for time. And after that, we will get rid of it. See? And we'll do it all with free tools or literally some PowerShell. After that, we'll look at building a home lab, because you all should have one if you have any thought process of this. We're doing this for a job. We also have evidence samples that are freely available to use. Some require simply making an account. Some literally click a button. And finally, some learning resources. All right. Whoops. That's not that should work. Aha. Okay. So what is malware forensics? So firstly, we've got to understand what digital forensics is to kind of get there. So to answer the question, digital forensics is the practice of identifying, extracting, and considering evidence from a digital media, such as a computer hard drive. It simply means if there is data on a digital medium, hard drive, RAM, whatever, you simply have to scientifically extract that data, or if you can't extract that data, record that data as best you can, so that things such as the ACPO principles, the ACPO guidelines from principles 1 to 4 are followed. If not, then we have other regulatory bodies that have their own kind of sets and standards, such as NIST, SANS, CREST, so on and so forth. So malware forensics, on the other hand, is the process of investigating and analyzing malware software. So malicious software simply is like software that's obviously got a malicious intent behind it, on those hard drives or in memory. So we'll talk a little bit about the difference between, in forensics, we really care about stuff on the hard drive because it's, previous before we got here. Malware potentially is running, and as such, RAM isn't very important to us. So to get a copy of those, see API calls and that kind of stuff, very, 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 very key. So this is known as malware. Simply want to understand its behavior, its purpose, and its impact on computer systems or networks. So generic kind of definition, but the idea is that we need to figure out what it does, how it works, and why it's there. Later down the line, once we've analyzed it, we've isolated it, we can figure out how it got there. Maybe there's some other friends there too. Another thing that I won't go into too much here is simply there are typically 3 types of malware you'll find, being viruses, worms, and Trojans. You can find different categories of them. Some places will say there's 10 or 12 or 15 different categories. Some on the other hand will simply just say these categories have specific parts of a Trojan, like it's like a Trojan, or it has worm-like capabilities, and thus they put it as a subcategory under the one of the 3. It simply depends on when you go for. So if you're looking up, what is just make sure that you at least look at 1 or 2 other resources just to make sure you got everything that you need. So, talking about jobs. So how do we get here? So most people in malware forensics start off typically as an analyst. So that could be IT desk, something like that. A technician, again, done that work in the past, very invaluable to learn because you can't defend something that you don't know how it works, and you certainly cannot analyze something that, again, you don't know how it works. Or a software developer, because at the end of the day, malware is software. So being a software developer, doing things such as reverse analysis, which we'll talk about a little bit, is also really cool. So, and this also, to complicate things further, can be different industry buzzword job titles. I've seen like defense specialist and stuff like that still come up time to time, and I'm like, what's that? Like, do you work at the front of Tesco's, or do you deal with like crime? So who knows? So in the place, if you went that way, for example, you could look for the high-tech crime units. There are other non-civilian based ones. Typically mean that you become a law enforcement officer first, so your powers of arrest, then you go through your training, after which then you move into a computing-based role after a couple of years, or you can go via military route as well, or if you're in service for so many years, after you leave, you're guaranteed like some MSc training, some certification to get you back in civilian life. Consulting is another direction. Some students can get there, or even non-students can get there. out of university or simply straight out of an apprenticeship. It simply is a little more demanding in there because you get paid better, but the demands are much higher. And finally, depending on your employer, you may need to pass a certain level of checks, such as Scotland or a baseline check, which simply just are you a truthful person, SC, security cleared. So if you are corruption and bribery is potentially something that could get you, do you have debts that are crippling, that kind of thing, or a CTC, counterterrorism clearance if you're dealing with extremism, or DV, which is developed vetting. Typically, you can't be offered, you can't ask for these things, you'll be offered them either through a ex-list contractor or through the government. Again, more information on that as you go along. Okay, so how do we get there? Now, I'm not saying degrees are everything. They're just typically on every job advert, right? As I'm sure you may have all seen. You can go through a digital forensics degree, cybersecurity, computer science, or again, we're talking malware here, so software development's totally fair. Or networking, because again, you're dealing with large corporations eventually, or at some point you will be. You can also even be non-computer based. So it can be investigative studies, criminology. So again, I would say if someone wants to do digital forensics and they're in these kind of courses, that's cool. You might need a computer top up. And that's simply based on one reason, because you might not have enough depth in that in computer science. But that being said, a small top up class or course that could last a couple of weeks to a couple of months could potentially get you there, because we're focusing on a job rather than going through all the theory of over here and over here, which is not necessary for your job, at least at that level. Alternatives in MSc conversion course. So if you go to university and let's just say you did English or history and you thought, you know what, I want to be a malware analysis today, you potentially could take a cybersecurity conversion course. Many universities around the United Kingdom provide this, of course, around Europe and internationally. So look out for that kind of thing. It's a good way to kind of get in there. Some are very focused, really heavily focused in 1 year, or some are less focused, but over a 2-year period. They give you a bit more breathing room. So it's up to you. You've also got apprenticeships, around the apprenticeship course, like over 5 years, which were the tech skills or TB degrees back then. You can go through an apprenticeship program. There's typically no fees for courses in these scenarios. Simply, you go to the program, you learn on the job, and you do it at uni 1 day a week or a block week every 6 months or 4 months, something like that. Again, really good, gives you experience on the day, and also you get trained up over time. And likely a job at the end of it, because at the end of the day, degree you get for a job. You do these certifications to get a job. The job gets you money. Going down the self-taught route is also completely viable. We've had candidates before we've hired in companies that didn't have formal degrees, but they had a plethora of knowledge, experience, could do technical tests very well, and seemed to have everything that we needed, simply. So going down the self-taught route, you can do freely available courses. Cisco have some freely available courses. I think even CompTIA have some, or if not, they're very, very cheap as far as courses go in industry. Or they're well-known certifications. Some people just take the plunge and pay for. I never recommend doing that, because you're paying for something that in reality, if you were in those kind of jobs, your employer would pay for you because they would need it due to like a regulation or some kind of like bylaw in their company saying that all of our people are Cisco trained or all of our people are Juniper trained, and therefore you're not. So you would need to have that done, and they would pay for that. But the key thing is building an e-portfolio, and we'll touch on this in a little bit, because effectively, when you're employed or be trying to be employed, an employer goes, what risk is there to employ you? And the simple answer is always the same. I have a portfolio. Here's all the things I can do. Here's all my evidence. Here's my online GitHub profile. Here are the things that I have done. Here are some awards that I have. It's like, here. It's like everything looks good to you. And if it doesn't, that's fine. Because, it takes time to build up this kind of evidence, and you can do it in your own time while in another career. So we've got a couple of things here. So understand the difference between files on disks and files in memory. So disk being hard drive and memory being your RAM. So your RAM is running devices or running applications, running software, running processes, handles, threads, API calls. And then on disk, you've simply got your files themselves. So they're, you get your file system, you've got your operating system, and anything below that if it needs to be recovered. So files on the hard disk are not running. They are sleeping in a way. They're not technically sleeping, but it's an easy way to explain it. So while they are in this sleep-like state, and when clicked on, they wake up and they're loaded into memory. So simply running a program and in it goes. In the term of malware analysis, static analysis is done in this scenario. So static analysis, when we have a file, we don't run that file. We don't want to run that file. We don't want to double click on that file. We simply want to put it into a program or run a script against it to simply say what it does, what strings it has, what's its capabilities, what are the quick and easy wins. Those are the things that we really care about, quick and easy wins. Because if you're on a site and you're working for an employer and you're sitting there for 4 hours, 8 hours, doing a whole room, it's going to be hard. And if you can't turn around at the end of the day and say, I have done this, it's going to be really hard for them to justify keeping you on for the next day and the day after that, because chances are the company you might work for is very expensive. So the best way to do this is quick and easy wins. It gives a really good, simple way to find our answers, or at least our kind of threads we can kind of pull on, and eventually, hopefully, lead us to our goal. So now we talk about things that are static on the disk and not running. We have our things that are running. We typically would have this as dynamic analysis. So files that are running are loaded into memory. Now, it's quite interesting when they get loaded into memory. I really like memory a lot. It's something in forensics that I find is quite overlooked a lot because typically in forensics, you have computers turned off, or if it's turned on nowadays, people run a triaging tool. So click this, run this, grab whatever the tool says it grabs, out it goes, and that's that. Sometimes, when we get to copy of memory, sometimes the computer itself is too slow, really, really slow. It might even be a different type of hypervisor. It might blue screen if you try to do that. Blue screen being a blue screen of death. So it clicks and So yeah, it's being aware of what you're doing and how you're doing it. So files are loaded into memory. The files on the disk can be different. So when you run a file in memory, anything else in memory can grab that file and do something to it. That's a problem. So even if your antivirus scans everything on the disk and says, this is a clean file, it's an official file, everyone's happy with this file on disk. However, whenever it is sent online, into your memory, then you have issues because anything else in memory could modify that maliciously. Because once it's ran, it's ran. Antiviruses, and I'm sure anyone who's been up and down LinkedIn may have seen an ad, our antivirus finds loads of malware and all this stuff. If it's running in memory, it can't see pages in memory. It can't. If it tried to do that, blue screen, because it would have to physically break into that memory protected area where the malware loves to sit. So always be very wary when you run something. And again, an example is to be a legit file modified in memory and then becomes infected, changing its behavior. So it's can be quite a funny bit of business. Now you say, Andrew, okay, I want quick and easy wins. I'm on site now. I want to show my employer that I'm really good. I'm really wanting to learn this. I'm really wanting to be useful to the team. So what am I looking for? Is there an easy guide? Turns out there kind of is. So we have something called KPIs. So KPIs are key performance indicators. They're used in cybersecurity to figure out if breaches have happened and kind of how we figure out what is working, how it's meant to be working. We categorize this into 4 categories. So we got ports, processes, files, and startup. Ports, like your port 80, your web traffic, 443, your type of traffic that's encrypted. You've got your shell-based traffic, for example. Have these things ran. If the computer's running, ports will be available. Computer's turned off, ports might not be available. So it's all about what you can get in which states the computer's in. You've got processes. So processes can be anything from a running process in memory, or it could potentially be, is there evidence that a process is ran? So we can potentially look at things like prefetch files. So like anything that's ran in memory, or say just ran, double click and execute on the computer, Windows will typically generate a prefetch file. Now, those prefetch files simply say, this program ran from this location, from this volume, at this date, at least this many times. And it'll give you the last 8 or so, depending on your version of Windows. You've also got things like files. So again, simply finding files on disk. So sometimes you'll find potentially malware in memory. Sometimes it's purged from memory, so we can't get that. Sometimes, of course, you can get it, and it might be on the disk somewhere. potentially hidden with certain flags on it. So a flag being like a type of attribute that's added to a file. So, for example, H for a hidden flag or an S for a system flag, it could be hidden in a system file. Can you typically see those? Nope. Is it easy to see those files? Yes, it is. But 99% of the users won't know what that means, let alone how to find that. And finally, in startups, quite a funny one. You can find it in many different ways. You can go all the way into something like your startup processes, so literally Control-Shift-Escape, and you'll be able to see what's running then and there. And a little over, you'll see your startup, and you'll see what's running and what's not running. Malware can hide itself from this. There are other ways to do this. Might go over them later on in questions if anyone's got any questions on it, but I'll move forward. So once you have understanding of these, or at least a general understanding, it's only a matter of time before the malware shows itself, because if it's ran, it should be in one of these 4 areas at minimum. And if you've got a virtual machine, for example, it could be all of these things. So again, it's all about quick wins. Once achieved, further analysis can be performed at a later date, if the business requires it. So at sometimes you might turn up and go, have you found the malware, Andrew? Yes, I have. Okay, thanks, bye. And you're like, huh? Chances are sometimes that happens. They'll just say, have you got rid of the malware? Okay, do you want to know how it got there? Don't care. You cost too much money. Bye-bye. And that's sometimes what happens. The business just wants to get it back and running. And on we go. So let's move to some development. So we need to figure out how we can develop ourselves. Everyone in this industry, 5 years, 10 years, 30 years, they'll all be developing it somehow, because malware, forensics, cyber in general, even computing and IT, it moves so fast that, and even you've got the encroaching AI overlords coming. So we have to make sure that we're ready, or at least understand these kind of trends and potentially exploit these trends if we're looking for a job in them. So you will need a home lab to get started and running. So simply, it's just a little section of a computer, or even a computer by itself. Usually, in my opinion, better to have an isolated computer if you're doing malware work, simply just because it's there and you're not, and the rest of your family are not. Usually a good idea. So typically, it's a virtualized environment or a cloud-based environment, and there are many ways to get this for free or for very low costs. It kind of depends on your scenario. So this can amount to, but I'll go over it in a little bit because we have a whole section on it. So this can amount to a portfolio that can show and demonstrate an employer your current skills and interests. So obviously, to an employer, it's always good to see that you can do something, but an employer may really get the idea that you're passionate about something and actually enjoy doing it, which can sound a little weird when I say this, if you haven't been in IT or a particular specific type of IT, and you go, I really like that, I find that really easy to do. And another person in your life might look at you and go, you must be crazy. So, it all depends. So giving that impression is, in my opinion, always a good thing. So the way you're known, you're a known quantity. So the risk of hiring you is lower. And then we know what training-wise we actually need to give you. So Andrew's portfolio shows this, this, and this, but a big gap here. Okay, so if we hire Andrew, he can make his money now in this. And then this here is what we'll train him in. Not bad. So if they're just driven by themselves, imagine what they'd be like with professional training and guidance. I always use that quote because at the end of the day, everyone has their own drive, or has to have their own drive in some way. And with a little bit of guidance, that drive can really, really spearhead you into an amazing career. So fundamentals are key to success. So starting in one place and building up your knowledge and then moving from there. I would never tell someone, oh, phones are the most popular thing. Like, literally, if you're starting malware and stuff like that, stay away from phones. They are probably the worst things you can start on. There's so many of them, so many different types, and so many different brands. Stick to something like Linux or Windows, just because they're well known, they're very mature systems. The file systems are very mature, and Windows one's been the same for over 10 years. Operating systems themselves only ever change in reality every, 4 or 5 years, right? Even Windows 10 is still popular than Windows 11. Windows 11 is even regressing in size because Windows 10 is simply more popular. So, just to give you an idea. So yeah, like I said, Windows first or Linux first, and then branch out from there once you're comfortable. All right. quickly touch on these. So soft skills are always an interesting one for IT. Some people say that some people in IT just haven't got some of the soft skills. They can't talk to a person, they can consult with a person, they can communicate really high level stuff to a technical layman or someone simply who just has no, understanding. That's fine. That's cool. Everyone starts somewhere. And in time, you'll get that. So if you can work in a team, work by yourself, sometimes you're a team of individuals where you all accomplish your little goals, but eventually they get a big goal. But sometimes, and usually, you will have to work by yourself. There is sometimes maybe like in programming where you can do pair programming, where you kind of both take responsibility over something. And in investigations, this kind of happens to an extent, but you still have your own little section that you yourself will have to work on. So you have to be comfortable with doing that. Yes, you'll be able to act or talk to law enforcement or being able to talk to someone with authority. So you're like, oh, board level person, hi, how are you? Treat them like a normal human. I know your business is about a problem. We find this so far. We think your business is back up and running. We haven't saw any of your malware. Your known good config is good. Your instant response plan has been tested by us as well, and it looks like it's worked efficiently. After that, they can make a decision. And have an investigative mindset. So again, there's a great book that I'll have down near the end of it. I think it's from DFIR. They're really good. Yeah, always good to have a good mindset to what you're doing. Then there's some hard skills. Effectively, a lot of technical things. You got law stuff like RIPA, PSCMA, or the Data Protection Act. So RIPA is the Regulated Investigatory Powers Act in the United Kingdom. It talks about warrants and getting passwords from suspects and that kind of thing, or PACE, the Police and Criminal Evidence Act. So, how you can detain a suspect and that kind of thing. It means a lot to certain jobs, maybe not some to others. Computer misuse acts are very important. So how we actually use a computer and if it's allowed to be used in such a way. You have ISO standards. So I would call it the 27K family or the 27,000 family. And I have like 27,001, your standard information security one. You've also got one from malware. I think it's like section like 8.2, 8.3 of 2002. And it talks about specifically malware and how you would handle that. And of course, you've got 17025, which is the forensic lab practices. So simply getting data from one lab to another safely. And you've got ACPO, which is the ACPO guidelines. So again, you've got 4 guidelines governing data that should not be changed. If you change, why you make that change? Have you got an evidence trail or a paper trail to show how that happened, so another person can do the same thing you did, get the same result? Everyone should be happy. And yeah, I'm hoping that it doesn't fall on you if anything goes wrong. Command lines are very important. Software is software, so you will have to work with command lines, PowerShell, Terminal, and to quote a famous person, PowerShell, it is your future, because there's a lot of stuff now that computers we can't touch, a lot of things in the cloud that you will never see. So unless you can access it in that one way, you may never be able to access it. And again, as said earlier, understanding what an instant response plan is, how it works, when it was last tested. Do you have a known good configuration? Meaning that everyone makes a virtual machine. It has exactly this, all these files, all these hashes, good. In the next update, we have another base machine. We did the update to the machine. Here is all the files again. Here's all the software we use in our business. Okay. If it differs from that, then we can see maybe there's something that needs to be investigated, because you can go from millions of files down to a few thousand potentially, which can save you a lot of time and naturally money, because the consultant won't have to look through that. You can look through it yourself. You've also got networking, so the OSI, TCP/IP models. Simply just learning about how networking in general works, how data goes from the physical layer all the way up to an application and back down. Understanding the parts of a computer are very important. Computer, RAM, hard drive, as prime examples. Simply just because data is very important and handling it with care is very good. And finally, if you can have an understanding of some forensic artifacts, I go over this a little bit, and again, one of the previous BCS ones I've done, so you can have a look at it. It's getting into cybercrime forensics, something along those lines. And we talk about things like prefetch files, like programs have previously ran, shell bags, what someone had saw on a computer, so like through the Windows Explorer. Or you've got jump lists, they click and they jump up from your taskbar, and you can see all the previous files someone has interacted with, or Sam, so your like passwords and whatnot. So yeah, I know it's kind of a bang, 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 but there's a lot of cool stuff to know. All right, so demo time. It's always the hard bit, isn't it? Because it's the bit that always goes wrong. All right, if you give me 1 second, I will stop sharing this screen and I will share the next screen, and hopefully everything will go okay with any amount of luck. All right, so let's see here. Okay, it should have transferred to my second screen. Just to check, Margaret, can you?
Yes, yes, it looks good.
Go, just checking. Thank you. All right. In a virtual machine or a NetLab environment, it's just a cloud-based virtual machine. That's all it is. It sits there. It doesn't do anything. It has no internet connection, and simply it's sharing the keyboard, the video, and the mouse, AVM, and it's sent simply to your browser, so I can do what I want in it, and when it's done, vanishes. Again, we'll talk a little about how to make these kind of home labs later. So first up, let's go and go to the bad stuff folder. We love bad stuff. So let's go and grab some malware. So what we'll do is, we're going to grab some stuff from the zoo repository. So the zoo repository we'll talk about a little bit down below, but effectively it's a repo that has loads and loads of malware. It gets updated regularly. It's really, really useful. It'll give you anything from Windows, Linux, Mac, Android, a lot. There are other ones that we'll go through too, but this is just a really easy, small example of how simple it is for someone to run malware. So this here is a rat tool or a remote access Trojan or a remote access tool, depending where you are. And what I'm doing is I'm running the command and control center so that I can see what victims I'm connecting to. I'm going to build a bit of malware. This simply is a little exe file. It can be changed to anything. You can embed it into a PDF. I've got some software I can show you to do that further on down. And it's really, really easy because most things that you see or most people that get attacked will always be done through a phishing email or some social engineering. Here's a PDF for something you haven't paid. We need this paid urgently. Click, and you will not even see it running. It'll just run in the background. It'll look like a legitimate PDF. Oh, I'm sorry, you've got the wrong company. It's instead of it being, mycompany.com, it could be, mycompany5.co.uk, something like that. So what I've just done there, it's quickly make a base version of this malware. The malware is called client.exe. In fact, this is the server, and my victim is a client that will connect to me. And if this were embedded in, say, a file on Discord, oh, mate, I got this great thing off like GTA. It gets you like a really cool color on your, character or something like that. Double click. It didn't work. They must have patched it. Sorry. But in reality, you've just affected their computer. I also point out, computer Mushisak, don't do these things to your friends and family. It is legal. But obviously, if you've got permission and you've got your own little test environment that you can work this in, then obviously it's different. So I'm going to run this. And if you give it a moment, it should pop up here. And it will tell me what computer is connected, or should I say my victim has connected. So at this point, it's the Neon Cat Revenge malware. I can see it's running Windows 10 Enterprise, it's running a Xeon processor, it's got so much RAM, and my user's called MS Edge Win 10, which is part of the Flare-based environment, which we'll again talk about later. When I click into this, I can see things about the victim. So I can have a little chat with them if I want to. So I can say, hi, give me your money. And this will pop up on their screen on the left-hand side here. They can't close it, as you can see. Oh no, it's like, hi, oh no. Oh no. So yeah, you can have a little bit of fun in that sense. You can also do a screen capture. This will look like the Matrix because it's like a screen inside a screen inside a screen, if you get the idea. But you can see what they're doing on the screen. If depending on how the quality or how big your screen is, you might see my mouse running around. Give you an idea maybe on the back or something like that. You see it's moved. You can also see the files that are running. You can run the command prompt. You can see what's on their computer drive. So in this case, run a directory, dir, and you can see bad stuff, clan.exe, fakenet, and these are all found here on my desktop. So very easy, very simple, and yeah, pretty scary. Some other things that you can do. Let's see, let's close that for the moment. We could even grab something that you guys may have seen before. So there's things like WannaCry. So again, you may have seen this before. You run it, oh no, it's encrypted all the files on my computer, so on and so forth. It crippled the NHS all those years ago. So there are different ways that you can go about this. So if this is running now, it's going to be really annoying to get rid of. It's encrypting files just to confirm it is doing something. Let's click on the decrypt and start. So what is it encrypted? So it's encrypted all these, some Python libraries and whatnot. So let's have a look at what we can do about this. So this came up on your work computer. Oh no, what's happening? I'm going to get fired. Don't worry, it might be okay. So first things first, you want to isolate this from the node. So in other words, this is our computer. We don't want it to have any Bluetooth connectivity, any Wi-Fi connectivity, any internet connectivity. Just literally, this is a laptop or a computer, and it doesn't connect to anything. So pull the wires out of the back of it. Don't turn it off. Just simply pull out any connectivity. Go to your programs, turn off Bluetooth, just so nothing can leave this computer. So having one infected computer in an organization is better than having hundreds or thousands, depending how big it is and what your policies are. From that point, we will then see if we can stop it. And then we can, I don't think I've got time to do the recovery, but I'm sure if I do a follow-up one, I can do that. So we can do this really easy in PowerShell. So let's grab PowerShell. And on PowerShell, let me just make this a little bigger because I'm sure your eyes might find it a wee bit hard. So easy enough, you can do a process list or a PS. You go in the corner, I don't need you. So PS, what it does, it lets me see all the processes running in Windows. I can see there's Wanna decryptor. Obviously, that is something I don't want to be there as a user. A little further down, you may also see WannaCry as well too. So there's two processes, one being the parent and one being the child. So even if you kill the one on screen all the time, it'll keep popping back up because the parent is still existing. Or maybe potentially the child is keeping the parent alive somehow. Again, different loops and different types of attacks. So how do we get rid of this? Well, quite easy, actually. We can do a task kill, so we can. Oops, as he says. Task kill. We can then grab the PID. So the PID is a process ID. So this gives you a general idea. If I go to my task manager, I can see that we have our details, and we can see all the things running. See WannaCry here running, and we can see its PID number is 4004. So we can see the process ID is 4004. And there'll be another one saying WannaCry somewhere, but it might be hidden. Who knows? So let's see if we can kill that. So we want to kill the WannaCry one. So it's 3648. So let's grab that. So 3648. And again, as you can see, it keeps popping up on the right-hand side here. And then on top of that, what we'll do is we will do a /F or -F. What this will do is force the thing close. Process terminated. After that, we'll grab the other one quickly. So I believe it was 4004. And there we go. Boom. Now, how do I know? Well, first and foremost, let's go back and have a look at the process list again. So WannaCry should be gone from the top, from our new list. And also slowly going down, we should also see that it's gone from the bottom of the list. We can confirm this a little further by simply not seeing anything pop up on my screen. At this point, your files are still encrypted, but that doesn't mean they can't be unencrypted. It just means that no more are being encrypted. So you've made it safe for the time being. We can also, if you right-click your task manager, whenever you encrypt files, typically there's a lot of CPU usage and a lot of disk usage, because at the end of the day, that file's being encrypted and then deleted, or another one's being pushed inside a folder. If we go to performance, we can see that my CPU is only on 3% on the Xeon. I've got almost 0 disk usage. So chances are there isn't anything encrypting in the background. Now, some very sophisticated malware can hide certain stats, but in this particular case, it does not. So hopefully that was somewhat interesting, but if it happens, it's really easy to fix. PowerShell's installed on all Windows computers that you typically come across. Command prompt can even do the same thing, just slightly differently. You can even use the WMIC as well, though that's a whole topic in itself. Even in Linux, it's the same thing. You can do the exact same thing. It's very, very similar. PowerShell is also open source now. So I think it was about 8 years ago it was made open source, PowerShell Core. So that means that you could potentially do this on Linux and even on Mac. So you can, if your administrator has installed that on it. Okay, so that's all great. Let me just kill that off, power that down, and then what I will do is swap my screen back to the presentation.
Looks good.
And you see it okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so you should see Home Lab Startup now, yeah? In yellow?
Yeah, perfect.
Awesome, thank you. It's always worth checking these things. Okay, so say you wanted to do what I did there. A few seconds. Why would you build the Home Lab? So again, offers you a unique chance to craft a customizing learning environment just for you. Sounds pretty good to me. The environment can be self-hosted on your own computer, or it could be in the cloud. So you've got like AWS or Azure. They have like a studenty thing, or like a, I want to try a free trial kind of thing. Although they do come with large costs in the future, especially like literally the month or two after. Oracle, one of the ones that I use, super good. Like literally, hats off to Oracle. Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. They have a free firmware tier. You get 4 ARM cores, 24 gigs of memory, 200 gigs of storage, and it's Linux-based. In this case, be Ubuntu. You can also use Oracle Linux too, I believe. But yeah, it's free forever. Easy peasy. All you need is a debit card or credit card to sign up. They don't charge you anything. I've had it for over 2 years. Never been charged once. It's really, really good. And I believe it works all over the world. So if it's something you're interested in, definitely take a look. A Raspberry Pi is also a really good option. The new 5th gen's out. Really, really cool. Get lots more cores, bit more, well, same amount of RAM, but be a little faster. So it can be really useful to have it in your home lab. I even use one at home for an Nginx proxy, so I can get my containers and all my services out of my network and back in, all safe and sound, without having to open ports and be dangerous in any form like that. Or if you want, you can just go onto eBay. There's so much stuff that's been thrown away during the pandemic that, workstations are going for very, very little money. They'll have like 10 cores, 12 cores, maybe even hyper-threading. So you've got 20 or 24 cores. That will be more than enough for any home lab. Just a computer in the corner. You put an internet connection in it. You get what you need. You take out the internet connection. There's your home lab. All safe and sound and away from everyone else on your network. This will be a fantastic tool to build your skills and potential for an employer. And again, lowers the risk for you to be actually hired as well. And again, make sure you keep that portfolio up to date. And back it up too, because I've had students magically lose their portfolio, and it's not the conversation you want to be having with a potential employer or candidate. So what kind of stats or what kind of hardware do I need? So typically we have a guest operating system that runs out of the host. So the host in this scenario, let's say Windows, and that you run a little Windows virtual machine or a little Linux virtual machine inside of this, and you isolate it so it can't talk to each other. And that means when you run your malware, it won't seep down into the host and affect everyone else. So typically 4 cores, 8 threads, slightly more for Windows because Windows is simply more demanding than Linux to run. 16 gigs of memory is essential. 8 gigs is not really enough because Windows 10 alone literally recommend or minimum requirements is that. So, running 2 of it, you have to double the minimum requirements. You have SSDs with 500 gigs of storage. So again, plenty of storage for all of your repos, your software you're going to install, all that kind of stuff, and 2 screens, because even right now I've got 2 screens in front of me. It's the best thing ever, because having to do this over multiple ones is not fun. Now, for the fun bit, or the second fun bit. So in order to do this, you say, Andrew, I haven't got any money. I've got a spare computer, or I've got a Raspberry Pi. What software do I use? Because you haven't really showed me that. Great question. So VirtualBox, again, another thing by Oracle, completely free, used by a load of people in the industry. It's very, very good. It costs nothing to use it for yourself. Simple as. VMware is another option, but VMware is expensive, especially if you want the Workstation Pro version. The main difference is that snapshots. So whenever you say have a perfect computer that's ready for the malware, that's all cool. Once your computer is ready for the malware, you make a snapshot. Then you run your malware and you go, oh, okay, that's what happened, but I want to run something else and I don't want this to interfere. You go back to your snapshot and then this never happened. And that way you're safe, you're sound, you're secure. And if anything goes wrong, it doesn't matter, just bring it back. You know, no harm, no foul. So VirtualBox is for free. So definitely check it out. And by the way, all these have a link at the bottom as the image taken from. Typically, it's from the website or something like that, like a screenshot, just to give you a visual representation. But all the links go to all of the softwares or resources or whatnot. You get SIFT. So we're talking forensics here. SIFT is really, really, really good. It's by Sans. It has a load of stuff pre-installed on it as a version of Linux. I highly recommend it. It is free as well. It comes with a bunch of cheat sheets. We'll show the cheat sheets a little lower. It just things that you can do, things, how they work, that kind of thing. Use cutting-edge open source technology, freely available, and it also works really well with Remnux, which is in the next slide. So we're talking malware here now. So Remnux is a Linux toolkit for reverse engineering and analyzing malicious software, things we really like the sound of. Remnux provides a curated set of free tools. It's auto updates. Well, it's the auto updates. You run a command and on it goes. And it can help you out really, really well for a lot of investigations. But Andrew, I don't like Linux for some reason. I like Windows, and Windows is what I want to run things on because I am familiar and personally more favorable to that environment. Okay, no problem. Right, let's have a look at Flare. So Flare is made by a company, or was made by a company called Mandiant. They're now owned by Google, as far as I'm aware. They have a repo on GitHub on this link. Literally installs on a particular version of Windows 10. It's the Edge version, like for a developer. Once you grab it from the Microsoft website, it's completely free to grab. Anyone can get it. It's got a 30-day free trial. If you wanted it, just go buy a license for Windows and plug it in. There you go. Everything's above board. And you've got a really cool bit of software. So what it will do is it use Chocolatey. It's a package manager, and it'll grab all those things down for you. It gets all the software you need, the conditions, as long as you fulfill the prerequisites before you install it. It's all great. It runs on a virtual machine, and I use it, I would even say weekly. So yeah, absolutely, definitely worth it. And some of the tools that you see down below actually are installed in it, but I'm highlighting them specifically. So like something like PE Studio. PE Studio is really good. Again, we're talking quick wins. So you can just, if you happen to come across the malware file, you happen to find it in investigation, drop and drag it into this. You don't need to run it. It's just there. And it will tell you the indicators of compromise. So like what it is, why it's bad. This software should not be doing this. It should not have this permission. It should not attach or attack this file. It should not pull this library or this dynamic link library, a DLL file. It's completely free to use for personal use. I believe corporates have to pay to use it. But again, it's a really good resource. It also links to VirusTotal, which we'll talk about a little later. So VirusTotal simply is just a place online that you can upload your sample to. And once you upload your sample to it, boom, look at that. And you can check someone else has done all the work for you. It's great. And then you can go, so this is what it does. And you can go to the area on your drive and go, that's where the malware is. Thank you, random person online who did my work for me. See, free money. Eric Zimmerman from Zimmerman Tools. Guy is really, really cool. He does this all for free. I believe works for Crawl on Track, if I'm not mistaken. Crawl. He does a lot of parsers that you can get forensic artifacts for. Run in PowerShell, run a PowerShell script, and it grabs all of them. It's completely free. Yeah, definitely highly, highly, highly recommend the stuff. And in malware, for example, you can use this prefetch parser, so you can grab any prefetch files or any files that it gives a list in Windows of what files ran or executed on your volume, which is very, very useful because remember, malware is a program. It had to run. if it ran. And if it ran, you'll have a prefetch file. Windows says from Windows 7 onwards that we don't make prefetch files, yet you'll find in every version of Windows that I've ever seen, their prefetch files are still there. And if they're not there, there are other ones, Amcache, Gimcache, all the other types of artifacts, even sitting here at the top. Another big one is volatility. There are different versions of volatility, volatility 2 and volatility 3. Long story short, 2 is more feature rich. 3, in my opinion, is a little easier to use. They also don't come with graphical user interfaces or command line stuff. Don't worry, people in the community have made one click, it just runs. If that's how you want to start, that's how you want to start. You know, everyone learns differently. So volatility program lets you grab a copy of memory, and then it lets you analyze your RAM. Really, really useful. Grab a copy, take it away with you to your safe environment, do the work, and then make your report. Very, very powerful for forensic and for malware investigations. Free to use personally. And of course, it uses a plugin for pretty much every large forensic software will also use it. So again, very, very good to have a learn on. And again, SANS have a cheat sheet on how to use it. YouTube, I'm sure you can find a million tutorials on it too. DFIR, so digital forensics and incident response training tools. They've got this cool little interactive thing saying, I want something to do with malicious documents. I want to be able to create a malicious document, and then it'll give you some software options, in this case, Evil Clippy. What it will do is it will help you put malware inside a PDF, and then you can send it to yourself on a little mail server, or you can just click on it. It'll open up and it'll run the malware in the background. And then from there, you can conduct your investigation. So that's really cool. And again, this could be used to test against your firewall, IDS, IPS, or your intrusion prevention and detection systems as well, if you're a company and you want to test it out. Getting near the end here. So we've got the repos. So that's where you get your malware from. It's pretty simple to grab it. It's just a command that you run in PowerShell and it pulls the whole thing down. What I used previously, the Nyan rat tool, that's in this repository. It's what I typically use for my students. It's free, simple, easy to use, plenty of things, and it gets updated every so often. So yeah, definitely grab some. Again, make sure to bring this down into your working environment, not into your own home environment. Because obviously malware will be flagged likely by your antivirus, potentially, or potentially not. Also got the practical malware analysis book. So I recommend my students do this. Even it's for XP. And think to yourself, Andrew, why are you talking about XP? We've had like about 4, 5, or 6 operating systems since then in Windows. Doesn't matter. It's a great book. One of my bosses many years ago, Ian, told me to read this, and it was really, really useful. Really, really useful. I didn't think it would be, but here I am now. So the book can be bought online. You can get it in university library, or you can request it in your public library too. So it may not even cost you anything. It covers many aspects of XP-based malware. Some of it still works in Windows, some of it doesn't. And there is a later build of this in that link for Windows 7. So if you have a Windows 7 virtual machine, you can still do the whole book, which again is really good. So the book tells you how things work, and it gives you samples to go with the book, and the link will give you the samples. You've also got places like Malware Bazaar. So Malware Bazaar is the place where you click a button, say yes, and people upload different types of malware. They're categorized. It's really useful and really easy to see what you want to see. Hybrid analysis is effectively the same thing, although you're required to be verified. So if you're a university person, you might need a profile online to show off, or work at a company, because they'll typically want to verify you just to make sure you won't, download these things for naughty purposes. Although, in all honesty, you can get this stuff elsewhere. It also has its own online sandbox you can upload stuff to, or you can use its full features for a small fee. As far as learning resources, we talked a little bit earlier about VirusTotal. Again, great place if you want to send your samples somewhere, or simply if you have a file, you right-click properties and you have a hash of that file, copy-paste, or if you can't copy-paste because you have no internet connection, do the long type. Once you type it in, has anyone seen this file before? Just use the search function instead of the file function. Who knows? And you might have someone who's done all the work for you. They'll tell you the behavior of the file, where it runs from, who made it, what its core goal or mission is, so on and so forth. very useful. Again, SANS, talked about it earlier. So SANS have many posters and cheat sheets, really great resource, completely free. You just need to make an account to actually view them. So yeah, there's a link there to the generic posters that just gives you the list. And then the malware specific one, I've also got a link in there too. And then finally, we have the DFIR training collection. So again, Digital Forensics Response, I mentioned this earlier, is a collection of really good books, evidence, podcast tools, super, super useful. It also is a very well-known book in there for dealing with investigator mindset. I mean, you do need a little pen to kind of like mark the book as you go along, because there's so much stuff that you'll never have ever thought about, and I definitely fit in that category. Definitely really worth a read. It also has other things in there too. Trying to think. As artifacts as well, so evidence you can actually download and check, or at least it lists evidence that you can have a look at. All right, sorry I was a little fast, but got a lot in 1 hour. But here we are. So to conclude this, what is malware forensics? So we talked a little bit about that. We talked about the roles that were potentially available as a job outlook and how to kind of get there. Advice for starting: building your portfolio, getting your home lab set up, doing it in a safe way. If you don't understand how to do it safely, not a problem. There are plenty of tutorials online how to do that, like literally VirtualBox space malware analysis, enter. If you even find me on LinkedIn, Andrew Moore, you actually find that one of my students did a long guide on this. It's got a bunch of likes on LinkedIn. So yeah, search me and you'll find them, and hopefully it'll be useful to you. Learn the soft and hard skills. So it's very important, not simply just because I am so smart, I can do everything. That isn't how it always works. You need to be able to deal with people, deal with a team, organize a team, and also be able to take orders effectively in the team, as well as give them, that nice feedback between team members. And of course, your investigator mindset. We went through tools that are free to grab and use, resources for malware that you can do all your work for, and of course, your resources for learning. So yeah, that's it. If you guys got any questions, I'll be happy to go through them. Thanks.